On April 28, 2022-year-old Russian diving instructor Yuri Lipsky decided to reach the depths of the Blue Hole in Dahab, Egypt. This was a risky plan from the get-go, since the Blue Hole is widely regarded as the deadliest diving site in the world, with as many as 200 fatalities in recent years. To make matters worse, before his dive, Yuri asked a local technical diver to accompany him on his journey. All of them rejected him, since the preparations for this risky of a dive took as long as a week, yet Yuri wanted to go in just 2 days, no matter what, even after every instructor refused to support his plan instead of backing out. Yuri made the worst mistake of his life and chose to go through with it alone. He started the dive around noon and quickly disappeared into the depths of the ocean. However, many hours passed, and there was no sign of Yuri. Anywhere, his concerned mother enlisted the help of a local technical diver named Tariq Omar. Her son, unfortunately, by the time he found Yuri, it was already too late, Tariq discovered Yuri's lifeless body floating near the floor of the Blue Hole. The next day, he returned with the necessary equipment to bring Yuri's body back to the surface and got to work, but as he was about to take Yuri back, he noticed that Yuri's diving camera was lying nearby. So he grabbed that as well and began ascending. This camera had captured the final moments of Yuri in haunting detail. The dive started.
The dive started
like any other, with Yuri swimming alongside many other divers. However, it wasn't long before everyone else faded from view as he started to descend deeper into the Blue Hole. And that's when all the worst possible things started happening in rapid succession. It started with him failing to keep his gas levels under check, resulting in him getting nitrogen poisoning and becoming extremely disoriented. By the time he realized his situation, he was already sinking like a rock. He started panicking. It began inflating his buoyancy control device. Quickly, to avoid sinking any further, tragically, this backfired. The buoyancy control device bursted due to the rapidly increasing pressure, leaving Yuri no way of safely returning to the surface. Increasing depth exacerbates the symptoms of nitrogen poisoning as well, and it wasn't long before his camera captured the horrific sounds of him struggling to breathe, ending with him sinking to the 377 feet or 115 meters deep sea floor and passing away. The only silver lining in this whole situation is that there's a good chance the found footage helped, at least. One diver avoided a similar fate by learning from the mistakes that caused Yuri his life. On the 25th of February 2022, the Porea Fuel Company hired maintenance workers to reopen one of the underwater pipes connecting their oil unloading dock and refinery. The operation team included 5 men: Christopher Kazim, Yousef, Rishi, and Fisel. They were going to use a pressurized habitat to inspect the pipe and make any necessary repairs. However, shortly after entering this habitat, all 5 men disappeared from the worksite, leaving those on the surface to wonder what could have happened. It wasn't until rescuers found footage from a GoPro mounted to one of the divers' suits that the full truth came to light. The footage showed the men struggling to open the valve, keeping the pipe shut, prompting Kazim to go get a wrench. He returned to the habitat and handed the wrench over to his co-workers, but then, a few seconds later, this happened. The moment the valve was opened, its low pressure created a powerful vacuum. Water rushed into the habitat, while the pressurized air violently forced everyone into the pipe. All 5 of the men were forced into the 30 inches wide pipe faster than they could blink after tumbling. Through the metal pipe at violent speeds for a minute and a half, they came to a stop at a section. containing a small air pocket, just enough to keep them alive, allowing them a brief moment to find their bearings and assess the gravity of their situation. All of them were barely breathing, and one of them had also injured his leg, and while the air pocket was keeping them alive for the moment, it wasn't going to last very long, so with no other option, the two men at the front, Christopher and Fisel, started moving forward in hopes of reaching the pipe's end and getting help for the other three, but after making their way through several flooded sections, Fisel lost hope and refused to go any further. This left Christopher to continue alone and ultimately reach the end of the pipe, where he was eventually pulled out by rescuers. Unfortunately, the same did not happen for his 4 co-workers. Days passed and the rescue efforts were slim to none, eventually leaving the other 4 to die in that cramped metal tube. The company's CEO later defended this decision, stating that a rescue mission would have only endangered more lives. The incident sparked widespread outrage and even forced the regional government to launch an inquiry into how such a disaster was allowed to happen in the first place, but, as is the case with countless similar incidents, nothing much came of it despite the numerous hearings. The other 4 divers were left for dead. That said, the Trinidad government did announce a compensation of $1 million for each of their families, as well as Christopher, in April 2025 *. On January 8, 2005, a man named Martin discovered a mysterious package in his mailbox. Confused, he brought it inside and opened it up. Inside the package was a single item, a videotape with no label or note to explain its contents. Curious to see what was on it, he put it in his camcorder and pressed play, and the footage he found on it was shocking to say the least. It contained a nearly hour-long video of a man describing the violent things he was about to do, how he was going to lure his victims and the makeshift devices he was going to use. I'm not
trained in torture methods, which is what I'm gonna have to make do. I got my drill here. The reason why it's got this padding on it is just to try to silence it a bit, because I'm in an apartment. I got gags, socks, I got lots of duct tape. I got a soldering iron, sheets. It's rather crude implements. I think can work wonders, especially if it's used in the right way.
However, while the content itself was extremely grim, what disturbed Martin more was the fact that he personally knew the person on screen. This wasn't the manifesto of a serial killer planning to take innocent lives. Instead, it was the final message of Martin's close friend, Ricky Rodriguez, a man who was tormented by a cult from the moment he was born. He eventually managed to escape the cult and was now planning to take revenge on the people who did unspeakable things to him for all those years. He recorded this hour-long video and mailed it to his few friends and family so they would find it and have all the answers about what he was about to do.
Well, for many reasons, I guess. I suppose the main reason is that I want there to be some record of the way I feel, my ideas, just who I was, really.
Really, Ricky's story began 30 years earlier, on January 25, 1975. When he was born as the first child of Karen Elva, Zerby Karen was a member of a cult called the Children of God, which used Christian language to lure in young, impressionable minds, often teenagers, and molded them to its sick and perverse ideals. 2 years after Ricky's birth, he was adopted by the cult's leader, David Burke, who presented himself as the chosen one. David changed the cult's name to the Family and declared Ricky to be a religious herald, granting him a special position in the organization. However, while he was treated like royalty by the other members on the surface behind closed doors, Ricky was the victim of vile acts no child should ever have to endure. David not only encouraged these acts, but went as far as to write a whole book about everything he and his followers did too. Ricky called the story of DeVito. This abuse continued for many years, but as Ricky got older, he became aware of David's lies and manipulation. Then, in 1999, he finally managed to escape the cold with his girlfriend, Alexia. Manuel, by faking a visit to the cult's compound in Mexico and fleeing to the US instead, reintegration into society. After 24 years in an isolated cult was anything but simple, but Rishi somehow managed to pull through and secure a job as an electrician. He also married Aaliyah and later moved to Tucson, Arizona due to his work. Unfortunately, no matter how hard he tried to move forward, the nightmare he escaped continued to haunt him. David had passed away in 1994, and the cult was now under the supervision of Karen Zerbe, Ricky's mother. And while the cult had managed to escape legal repercussions by mainly operating overseas, Rishi knew that there were still countless children suffering the same fate as him. So in January of 2005, he decided enough was enough and took matters into his own hands. Which brings us back to the video he recorded and then mailed to a handful of close friends, and his wife in it, Rishi, mentioned his ultimate goal, which was to bring down the cult all on his own. Beyond that, a part of this was also about getting revenge for everything that was done to him.
And I wish it wasn't, but it is. It's a need for revenge. It's a need for justice. Because I can't go on like this.
In this video, he also laid out his plan for accomplishing this goal. He had apparently gotten in contact with his previous nanny, Angela Smith, who was among the group that tormented him during his time in the cult. He was going to invite her over for dinner at his apartment in Tucson and make her tell everything she knew about the other members' whereabouts by any means necessary. And that's exactly what he did on January 8th. After mailing copies of his recording, he invited Angelo into his home and proceeded with the plan. It's unclear what information he managed to extract from her before taking her life. He then got into his car and drove to Bowl, California. There, he rented a motel and called his wife to tell her about what he had done and what he was going to do. Next, however, despite the meticulous planning, Rishi ultimately couldn't follow through with the rest of his plan on the morning of January 9th. Authorities found his car in a parking lot just a few miles from the hotel. He was staying at. Rishi was found inside the car as well, where he had taken his own life, and while this was tragic news for his loved ones, it was hardly surprising for his wife, you see. Rishi believed that killing the cultists would bring him peace, something he reiterated in his last video. How liberating it would be, but that's not what happened during his call with his wife. He confessed that despite his anger and resentment, killing Angeline was the hardest thing he had ever done. Taking revenge didn't bring the comfort he was looking for. He couldn't bring himself to take any more lives and decided to end it all that night, leaving his friends and family with this hour-long video to remember him. As for the family cult, it remains active to this day under the leadership of his mother, *. Years ago, the Bureau of Land Management published a public service announcement dubbed "Stay Out and Stay Alive," educating viewers about the countless dangers of exploring abandoned mines, including the very real risk of caverns, volatile explosives, wild animals, and entire sections without oxygen. However, the most chilling part of the video was the story and the accompanying found footage of an accident that had occurred years earlier. On July 4th, 1998, a group of young men found an abandoned mine in Nevada and decided to explore it for fun, though surprisingly, the boys seemed acutely aware of the mistake they were making right from the start.
Stay out, stay alive. It's a good point, but we're not too smart, so we're gonna go anyway.
This is an unsafe mine. Danger.
Yet the allure of exploring a place untouched for decades was too tempting for them to ignore. However, the deeper they went into the mine, the more dangerous it became. With the boys walking over sketchy wooden bridges to continue their journey, they even found signs of the mine caving in, but chose to ignore those signs just to venture deeper.
There's lots of rocks and stuff that have fallen from the ceiling, which indicates that probably not a good idea to be walking this way. And,
well, they've already fallen, so they're not gonna fall again.
well, there's more to fall still.
It's still an important thing to keep in mind is that these weren't professionals. With prior experience of safely exploring abandoned mines, this was just a group of boys looking to do something cool and film the adventure. They could have easily plunged to their deaths down a 1,000 FT mine shaft or gotten lost in the miles-long maze of tunnels, which started looking more and more likely as time went on.
Remember where okay, we got out here.
Who painted these X's and stuff? Grant. What do they mean? Dead end and stuff. Okay, they're all got an X on them. We can go this way. That one's got an X. So it's also got that. What does the diamond mean?
Where's that go?
Goes down.
Along there.
Ooh, that's not a little.
Well, it'd be kind of hard if you slipped and fell. You could catch yourself before you actually fell down there. Not if panic set in and you scream like a little girl.
Toxic gases and radioactive elements could have also caused serious health issues down the line, if not immediately. Fortunately, they somehow managed to avoid all of these dangers and make their way fairly deep into the mine, but then they came across something that could have ended all of their lives in one fell swoop. Got them pipes.
Oh, wow.
We have to climb that. Yeah, everybody get the lucky one. This is going to America's Funniest When Somebody Falls.
That's a
Good idea, alrighty. Oh, that's the table. Don't touch that while crossing a sketchy section of the mine.
Good idea. Alrighty. Oh, that's the table. Don't touch that. The ropes.
While crossing a sketch,
One of the boys noticed a rope dangling down from one of the wooden beams and immediately became curious about whatever was down there. Little rope climbing experience between them. However, they didn't let that stop them from accomplishing their desires. The guy named Adam decided to be the first one to descend, resulting in this. How far down did it go? All the way down to that ladder anywhere. Own down like a good 30 feet. Am I going to hook this up? I want you like it, like he's doing in your mouth. Like, how am I going to get the thing down there? Yeah, but how to get back up? Take that, give you my belt strength. Adam, oh Adam, Adam, yes. Adam, oh God, Temple, somebody help Adam, the rope.
Yeah, it's all like this. Is it off now? No, it's looking. How am I gonna get the thing down there? Yeah, but how am I gonna get back up? I don't have.
Take that. Give you my belt strength.
Adam! Oh! Adam! Oh! Adam! Yes. Adam! Oh God. Oh God, somebody help. Adam!
the rope Adam chose to trust was completely worn and gave way shortly after.
After putting his weight on it, this caused him to plunge 65 feet down a dark mine shaft and lose consciousness. Luckily, none of the damage he took on his way down was immediately lethal. He was still breathing. His friends were able to find an exit and contact the authorities, who eventually rescued Adam after an hours-long rescue mission. Ultimately, them escaping the mine without any casualties was nothing short of a miracle. The mine shaft could have easily been over 100 feet deep, or Adam could have just as easily hit his head on the surrounding wall. Both of these scenarios would have resulted in his death. What's even worse is that the whole group could have gotten stranded in the shaft. If the rope broke when the last person was going down with no way to contact the outside world, the group would have likely died of starvation. Fortunately, they were able to walk away from this terrifying experience with just a few broken bones, along with cuts and scratches